Welcome to our weekly cult meeting, aka Magical Midweek, aka Hermeticum Day, aka Wednesday Adams, aka Wizard Wednesday. Channeling in from the Quantum Downs, this is your host, Elf, and joining me is...
Dotta!
And the guy who doesn't know how to start a Twitter space.
This is why we're late, folks. We tried to give Bear the reins, and you see what happens?
I have COVID. Come on.
Everyone falls the first time.
No,
I got it started, but then you guys started yelling at me over Discord about something else, and so I was like, "Fuck it, I'm rugging."
It's all right. Maybe next week, and that's a maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, folks. It is the year of the wizard. Dotta, Bear, and I started this week off with a 3-hour meeting going over what we want to focus on this year. And damn, I think I'm more excited than ever. We've got a ton of things in the works all across the franchise, all across the blockchain. And I think we're going to touch on some of those things today, because some of them are quite pivotal. Some of them would signal a big shift in the project, but we will touch on all of that later. It's a really big show today. We've got cult questions, we've got cult content, we've got Hugh Hat lore, and then we've got a look into the future. But let's start with some cult questions. What do you think, guys?
Let's do it.
Okay, so Brady asks, what do you feel the cult can be doing better to bring in new cult members? I think we each have a different answer for this. As far as I'm concerned, you guys are doing perfect. Like, honestly, like, just keep building, keep making stuff, keep being awesome, keep bringing the magic to the Runiverse, and keep writing the book of lore. That's really my answer, but I don't know. You guys maybe have a different take?
Yeah, I think that, like, really this idea of, like, fundamental cult creation is the most important, right? I think that, like, just creating things and sharing it. I think that, like, for me, I view it from the other perspective, which is, like, how I always think of things in terms of, like, building systems. And so I think are, like, what are systems that I can build that encourage people to, like, share on Twitter and kind of, like, bring more people in. So, for example, the Gigas Chat event, my entire feed was completely filled with, like, Christmas at the Gigas Chat. And so it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Like, I just saw that, like, Pudgy Penguins just created, like, a Chrome extension to, like, automatically respond
Sappy
to tweets where
Seals.
Oh, was that Sappy Seals?
Ooh, I was just kidding.
No, it probably was. Yeah.
Are you talking about the meme machine?
Yes, the meme machine. So
Yes,
Sappy
Sappy
Seals,
Seals.
you're right. Sappy Seals, they have a Chrome extension to like be a reply guy with all these memes, and it was like amazing. It was so fun and like totally something that we would do where you just like can reply with Forgotten Runes memes because, well, that's really fun. So yeah, I think that that's one of the things, right? Like, you know, people have mentioned that the meta right now is just like founders that kind of spend all day in spaces, and like that's how their projects work, right? You see this in a few projects right now, and I think, you know, whatever, good. We probably should spend more time in spaces, but at the same time, I think ultimately it has to come from like the community sort of like being obsessed with the project as well. And so, yeah, I'd like to build more tools like that.
Yeah, tools, systems are a great way to amplify. I mean, for me, I think in general, I see, the cult is doing amazing. Again, like just to speak what Dota was saying, like I just think doing more spaces, being out there, talking more. That's one of the things I want to get better at is sort of spending some more time in spaces. It feels like counterintuitive because it doesn't feel like work, but yeah, the reality is like there's a lot of projects out there sort of, getting a lot of lifts, not from delivering any actual products or new tokenomics or anything really shipping. It's just spending time talking about what they're doing. And so, the more that we do that, the more that the cult does that, I think, it will come back tenfold.
Okay, next question. This is a 3-part question from Lorepunk Emma in The One Who Rings. It is, what's your favorite cheese? What's your favorite cracker to go with said cheese? And what's your favorite wine to drink with the cracker and cheese? I'll go first. Mine is Cheese Whiz, Ritz cracker, and Welch's grape juice. Bear, how about you?
Oh my God! How are you alive?
Wow.
I tried to think of the most disgusting thing I could think of.
Oh, because I mean, like, I like all those things, but I'm surprised it just came that quickly. Okay, mine's Triscuit, some maybe cheddar, just like a nice original Triscuit, no like reduced fat bullshit. Maybe some cheddar cheese. And then gosh, I don't know, a nice tall glass of water, maybe.
No, you guys. So you know what I love? You take a roll of brie, right? And then you cover it in fig jam and you put it in the oven for like 20
We're
minutes.
not. This is
And then you
not.
have
This
like
is
a
not.
fresh baguette and you have like a nice Merlot, like something from Napa. That is my favorite.
This
This
is
is
not a
this.
cooking show. This is.
This is
We
this.
talking crackers.
It's also the strongest opinion that Dota has ever had. Okay, moving on. Okay, this next series of questions is actually really good. It's from Bill Gaines, Give a Hoot, and the One Who Rings. Basically, it's all the same question. It's win canon lore about locations, and I guess like other hats, because we already did all the colored hats, and so now people want to just know more about more specific things. Which yeah, I think is definitely going to be a part of 2023's Wizard Wednesday lore sections. Today we're going to go over the hue hats. And yeah, I think I want to definitely do this more. I think maybe one way I can get through this is like just giving quicker descriptions of things and doing a bunch at once rather than like going deep on one single thing. So yeah, so I'm going to do that today actually, and we'll definitely do that more. And when we start talking about future events, we're going to talk about a particular tool that will also serve this need. So that's the answer to that question. Tanya is asking, okay, this is a very serious question, guys. What do you do to protect your mental health during the bear market? Feels like a lot of people are struggling out there. Bear, in the bear market, mental health, what do you do?
Ooh. Don't sleep, stress out, and work harder. Is that the right answer?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so, yeah. Dota, you got anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, okay, I think there's basically like two levels, right? There's sort of like your fundamental relationship with like your family and your community that's like off of the computer and sort of like how do you deal with your day to the day. And I'm very fortunate there in that I have, a beautiful wife whom I love very much, and then I have children. And so I have like a very good sort of like social foundation both within the family and the community. It's kind of like there's no serious sort of like mental health issues in that regard. But I think that like in terms of sort of, well, let's say the bear market and like coming to work and coming to computers and seeing like people selling and people, people have all sorts of opinions, right? And so it's like, well, you should take VC money, you should not take VC money, you should be on spaces every day, no, you should do like doodles, and like you should cancel Wizard Wednesday. And it's like there's a kind of a lot of, and it's like really hard to know like what's the right path, right? There's like all of these different ideas that we could be doing, these different things that we could be building, and we have money, but not an infinite amount of money. So it's like, how do we do right by everyone and go for the biggest win? So I think that's like an anxiety thing. And I think really how I deal with that is like ultimately like just refocusing back on the basics of like what we're trying to build here, right? Like, the first thing I do is like look to my left and look to my right and see Elf and Bear and just feel like extremely grateful to be working with them, to feel almost like I just have so much respect for their talents, and to feel almost like, I don't know, not to be too grandiose, but to feel like these like three heroes who are like just fighting this battle to try to like bring this IP into existence. And of course we're not alone, but I think I work most closely with them. And I think that like when I really just stop and focus and look at like, okay, what are we doing? What do we have ahead of us, right? We have this like television show that we're like working on and serious about and it's feasible. We have like the Runiverse game that is going to be this like serious like video game that people will really like. And we have, all of these things being created in the Discord and the content, right? And you just go through the list of like looking like, do people like what we're building? And the answer is like absolutely yes. Like, okay, maybe I'm not getting the response that I want by being like number 2 in volume on OpenSea, but like when we look at like what we're aiming for and that the people that have come around us, you start to have just like a sense of gratefulness rather than like a sense of jealousy, and that just really helps keep me motivated.
Yep, I agree with that. You know, we've been saying a long time. The antidote to a bear market is just build fun experiences. Just build through it. And you know, that's not just a macro strategy. That's not just a business strategy. That's also a personal strategy for me. It's the old cliche: when you turn your passion into your job, then you'll never work a day in your life. And you know, I just love what we've built here. And by we, I mean Magic Machine, and I mean the cult. I mean, it might sound like I'm bullshitting you, but just seeing all the stuff that you guys build every day, all the amazing artwork and all the amazing cult content on Twitter, it really keeps me going. It's a magic with healing properties, and you know, I barely even feel the bear market sometimes just by seeing the world that you guys are building with us. Um, so that's my answer to that. Okay, now we have another fun question from Bridge. This is actually another three-part question. It's one for each of us. So I'll just start with mine. He says, "How does Elf manage writer's block?" Man, I could do 20 minutes on this. If I could answer this in the short way, let me speak on to how, like, I guess the creative process worked in the very beginning of creating this collection. Um, One thing that was really fun was I built it as fast as I could. And so what that meant was I just had to like look at everything I've sort of read and watched and digested across the entire media spectrum all my life, from books to video games to shows to films. And I took that impression and I put it in the collection. Um, and I think that's how we ended up with just like such a broad, generalized, archetypal take on the fantasy genre. You know, every single head, every single prop, they all have historical significance, cultural significance. And so for me, it was just a matter of like, just reaching back through the history of everything that's influenced me in my life. That was the muse. And I think that's how all writers or creators work. They just they have a mental backlog of all the things that have inspired them, and that's what they draw from to create new things. Um, you know, we could get more specific on that. I actually saw Tanya post a really cool video today on the oh God, what's it? I'm blanking on the name. Cannabis Coven, I think it's called. Sorry, Tanya, if I ruined that. But Tanya posted a really cool video.
Canis Coven, not
Cannabis
Cannabis.
Coven, yes, that's it. Yeah.
Cannabis Coven is probably a different group.
Yeah, exactly. Cannabis Coven. No, there's a really good video Tanya posted just to sort of guiding you through at least the starting process. I watched that today, and it is spot on. I won't go over it because Tanya explains it all perfectly. So that's at least like, if you're starting out with writer's block, just do what the Canis Coven does. Anyway, that's my answer. Okay, let me go to Dotta. Bridge asks, Dotta, how do you manage all the tabs, screens, screen time, and good posture at your battle station?
Okay. Well, I am like Silicon Valley basic insofar as I have like an Aeron chair, like the like classic, you know, whatever startup chair. I have a Kinesis Advantage split keyboard, so it's like two separate hands. Maybe someone can share a screenshot. I can't look it up. And then I've got like an Apple Cinema display monitor. I've actually got two. Well, I have a million tabs at a time open because I have a really bad memory, and so it actually helps like me remember what I'm actually working on. And then well, I use this extension called One Tab, which is really helpful because you can like sort of create these workspaces and then like, save them and then come back to something else later. So that's a semi-serious answer. But I don't really prioritize good posture so much until my like arms and legs fall asleep, and then I go out and lift some weights and then come back.
Okay, the best part, I saved the best for last. Bear, this is for you. Bridge wants to know, what part is the bear and what part is the snake?
Ooh, you know what? I actually know the answer to this.
Okay.
because I had a girlfriend in high school who was and this could go in a lot of directions. Actually, it was after college. It wasn't high school. Who was an amazing artist, and she drew a Bearsnake for me because it was like my gamer tag. So it's basically it's a snake body with like with like the upper torso, head, and arms of a bear. So
Oh, that's all. I was imagining something totally different. Okay.
what were you imagine? Well, we can get into it later. You can draw me what you think. You can be my girlfriend.
And actually, Bridge has a question for Jitcy, but I don't know if Jitcy is here. Jitzy, maybe you can write in Discord later. He says, does Jitcy plan on capturing Kobold energy in a bottle this year? I'm gonna let Jitzy answer that. Okay, Slim with another one of his perplexing questions, one of his riddles. He says, "Okay, I'm just going to read what he's asking. It says, is it sock sock shoe shoe, or is it sock shoe sock shoe?"
I do my socks first, and then the shoes.
Socks first, then shoes.
And then I tie my laces like after both shoes are on. I like go back.
Oh, I tie my laces when I first buy my shoes, but I tie them so loosely that I can just slip them on and off like socks.
Oh. So then it's just like sock, 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 sock.
Yeah, sock with walking tread. I'm sorry, I'm losing it today.
Okay, I do sock sock pants shoe shoe. Okay. And then finally, Schlee is asking, and this is a good segue into the next part. Schlee's asking any plans for the team beyond the game and the show? What else have you got? But you haven't really got the ball rolling on yet. What are some of the ultimate dream accomplishments you want to achieve with this project? I tell you what, Dotta, let's spend maybe the next 30 minutes answering that question. What do you think?
There is so much. There is so much. I have like 2 pages of things to talk about here. So let's just like dive in. I mean, I think that like, you know, when I look at sort of everything that we could do, I think that like at a high level, we're really just balancing between like being a Web 3 brand and a Web 2 brand. And I think that those two things are inextricably linked, right? We're going to do both. And you can't just do just one. Sorry, Bear, I'm getting a ton of noise through your mic. So you can't just do just one. You know, we're going to be both a Web 3 brand and a Web 2 brand. And so that means like having new interesting tokenomics and tokenomics games and like new sort of collectibles coming onto the market or like new games you can play with the existing collectibles. But then it also means like having like growing the Web 2, let's call it, IP through like all sorts of different ways, you know, the game, the comic, the show, all these things. So
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I think the first one to talk about is like the show, right? So the show is still in progress. I think we talked about this last week. We talk about it all the time. You know, December is a very slow month for kind of that industry. There have been a lot of like very good, creative, interesting business conversations happening there. And so like we'll have more kind of concrete things to show there, I think, within this first and second quarter. Do you want to add to that, Elf?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that's happened lately with the show is like Derek and I have been really nailing down the exact creative. By that I mean, what exact storylines do we want to hit? What exact characters do we want to appear? I know that Bear has promised me that I can fit at least 5,000 characters in it, so we're still selecting all 5,000. But yeah, we still need some like quote unquote main characters, and I think like Derek and I have really like found some really good ones that can just tell a really strong season 1 of the show. You know, as I've said before, I think the comic is like a really strong proof of concept of how we handle community content in these larger media expressions. We can have storylines that are pulled straight from the book of lore. We can have cameos from other people's wizards and warriors show up. And then some of it is like straight up storylines from Magic Machine. Some of it is maybe not necessarily from a specific page from the Book of Lore, but it's more just like a community-wide project, like the Kobold Horde. Like no one person created the Kobold Horde, as far as I know, but it's still like a cult creation. So, there's various ways to work cult content into this, and that's Derek and I have made a lot of strides lately in that respect.
I also think too with Derek is like one of the things that happened early on is like he's super famous and like very successful. And so it's always kind of like a bit of game when you get to know each other to like learn to work together. And so it's like you want to I notice it more, probably even more than the two of you, but like I want to be very like deferential to him because I'm like, wow, you're the expert storyteller and I don't know. But then at the same time, he doesn't necessarily know about the Runiverse beyond kind of like what he's sort of encountered with us because it's a new IP and we like talked to him about it. And so it's always this kind of like this like gentle process of like learning to work together, learning to have these discussions and being able to kind of like talk through it with them. And I feel like the trust level is a lot higher, the communication is a lot more like effective, and so it's very exciting. It just like operates at like a time scale that's a lot longer than crypto.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I mean, like on my own shows that I wrote and on projects that I was, a development executive, which is probably more the role that I'm playing in this scenario, is like we actually like let Derek run, almost like run free. And he went in a couple directions, and then Elf would come in and course correct and sort of educate on again on all the mythology and lore. And like it's almost like the 3D models. Like we actually went down a road, and then we decided it wasn't the right road. And sure, it pushes back timelines, but ultimately you only get one shot to make your first season, and it better be the best possible show ever. And I think there's also just this other layer of complexity where we're building it as we're going. So it's like it's not as set in stone. So I'm, as someone who's done this many times, like I'm very comfortable where it's at. And yeah, just takes a bit.
Yeah, so that'd be the first thing, right? Is the show. The next thing that is really significant would be the Goblin Town game. So, we've been working, just tirelessly to kind of like get this game together. It's like it's complicated in all the right ways, and it's going to be so fun. I mean, Niski has saved my bacon so many times where I like overcomplicate it, and he's able to like simplify it back down. We've got just like really beautiful art coming in that you've seen shared on the Goblin Town Twitter. One of the fun things that we're kind of like playing with is like leaning more into, let's call it like NFT degens. I'm sure you guys can sort of see that from the like Battle from Goblin Town Twitter, right? There's like we're experimenting with ideas that we don't typically do from, let's say, the official Forgotten Runes account, and frankly we're getting like really good response, so that's fun to see. People kind of like always want to try something new, and so we're working on the Goblin Town game. I could talk about that at length. I have before. I owe everyone a green paper and some tweet storms and some mechanics and like all of that. I could actually spend the rest of this space talking about Goblin Town, but I'm not going to because I have a lot of other stuff I want to talk about. But yeah, the game is going to be incredibly fun. All Forgotten Runes token holders will receive like a nice airdrop. We've been talking about like partner communities who like did trick or treat, get an airdrop. The way the game kind of works, right, is that you have like pieces on the board that are like your settlements, by which is like kind of the anchor of how you earn resources to then like build up your armies and expand your territory. And so like these partner communities, maybe they get like just one piece for free. And the reason why that's like really helpful and actually not that dilutive is because now they're actually a player in the game. Like they care about the game. You put down your piece, now you start accumulating resources. Whereas like folks who have like wizards, for example, will get a significantly more number of like initially starting pieces. So it's like enough that you feel like you have a little head start, but like not so much that people who are outside the wizards community will just be like, the wizards got too much of a head start. I don't even want to like play. So yeah, very excited for Goblin Town. And really there's a lot of infrastructure there for on-chain crypto games that we might do like later in the year. So Goblin Town game would be another one. Then of course the Runiverse game, right? I mean, I guess the initial question was like, what are you doing more than the show and the game? You know, I mean, those two projects are quite big. The Runiverse land sale is expected to drop this year. I mean, probably. I'm not going to commit to anyone, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it drop in, like, let's say Q2 of this year. Well, the art is like really progressing. You should check out the Runiverse game blog. Um, well, that is happening. Again, I don't want to like spend so much time on the Runiverse game because these are things that you all sort of know, right? There's a few other things that I want to like talk about, but maybe I'll pause there and see if Elf and Bear, just unmute if you want to like talk. I'm watching your mute.
Yeah, no, I'm all for moving to the next thing. Actually, we talk a lot about the Universe game, and we'll probably talk more about it later. I want to jump to 3D models, actually, which is another, honestly, a really big thing that's going to be coming. I know it's taking forever, but like, 3D first of all takes forever, and we've got 200 assets to make. But like once they're done, damn, it's going to unlock just a massive. It's going to be a paradigm shift. There's going to be so many freaking things that we can do with these things. You know, like baseline is using them in any open world 3D metas that are available, and I think we all know what's coming down the pike for that. But the whole 3D production is coming along really nicely. One thing we talk about internally a lot is once we're done with these, will Magic Machine have any kind of like 3D experience that we actually make? Any sort of like open world, just playground demo arena? And I think we will. We talk about having our own 3D stack. I don't know if we want to say too much about it now, but it's just, I don't know. 3D is just something that's going to be very exciting.
3D is going to be. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say 3D. Like it's one thing to provide 3D assets. It's another thing to be able to provide a tool set for people who don't know things like Blender and other and Unreal to be able to use them. So I think for me the 3D is twofold. One is to like deliver them to the cult and then give you guys a playground to be able to use them in and create memes and tell stories. And I think it starts simple and then it gets more complicated over time. And then I also think like there's just a bunch of ideas, mini games, etc., that I think we always thought about being 2D and pixelated that now we're like, oh well, we could just do this in 3D. And so it just gives us that flexibility to sort of play with both genres.
Yeah, I think that 3D will unlock like a lot of cult content. Even though historically 3D has been quite difficult to use, all the tools are getting way better and way easier. And so, like, I really want to have more tools for like writing lore, particularly long form lore. And you can definitely see being able to use the 3D models in order to do that. We will of course release like the fundamentals, right? Documentation on how to use them, documentation on how to integrate them into other metaverses. We're doing a lot of reach out, both like Bear and Jitcy and the teams like reaching out to other metas to get them integrated. And I think to echo what Elf says, we need to create sort of our own playground where you can play with them. It'll start very small, right? Like the first version will probably just be like you're outside by yourself, running around and jumping. Like, fine, fair enough. But ultimately, like, it's pretty clear that we need to kind of have sort of our own tool set to be able to work in 3D with these models. And there's just so much that you can do with 3D models. In the same way that like the pixel art characters are the kernel of a character. Now that you have all the characters encoded in 3D shapes and textures and rigged, again, that's another kernel.
Yeah, Malevolent is asking in the Discord. He says, with the 3D models, will the Flame Head Wiz or the Spectre Souls, for example, be static, or will the flames actually be animated? Yeah, I mean, these are questions we talk about with the 3D team all the time. One thing to keep in mind is like a major use case for these is they need to be deployable into other metas. They need to be interoperable with the metaverse, and so we're trying to build the baseline models very simple so that other projects can integrate them. Usually that precludes really fancy animated features like flames and stuff. However, that said, I can imagine a scenario where eventually these 3D models are customizable and you can add new features to them. But yeah, I don't think like the first version will have like animated flames.
Right, and that would for sure be environment dependent, right? Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised for us, for example, to like write or commission like a shader, like a flame shader. So shaders meaning kind of like, let's call it like graphical programs that define like how these 3D models work or
Yep.
and look. And so yes, you would need that basically like a program, a shader to describe what does it mean for like the skull to have like a flaming head and how does that move. And that would definitely have to be supported by the particular environment. So the first version will not really have, well, it won't have that sort of thing, but like, of course, you would want to be able to add it where it's supported.
And just another thing, real quick, I saw somebody like a month ago just sort of expressing a little bit of a disappointment. They wanted them to be like voxel just to more accurately reflect the original pixel characters. Just on that real quick, we actually did explore the voxel technique. The biggest issue was like actually finding an artist willing to commit like months of their lives making every single asset in voxel. Number two, there's just like not a lot of great voxel 3D software out there. Um, but all of that said, like this first version of 3D models, we could totally do a voxel version at some point. It's not like we'll build these and then we're done forever. So I don't know. I just wanted to say that real quick.
Yeah, and then we got to do souls and warriors, and there's a lot there.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Website improvements. This is actually something that I've been begging for months. We are definitely working on it. Even the Book of Lore, I think, definitely needs a lot of improvement. A lot of just better UI UX, better just graphic design. Yeah, Dotta, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, for the Book of Lore, like there's so much. One of the things that we were a little hesitant to add in the beginning, I think we were ready to add, which would be like bookmarking and likes. And so I think, and like maybe some record of like what you've actually read, right? Like a read on read status, something like that. I think that like if one of the things that we didn't want in the very beginning was to kind of like, put airdrops conditional on like the most likes or something, which would be totally gamed. And we want to like make sure that we're prioritizing like sort of art for art's sake rather than creating this like popularity contest. At the same time, there's a lot of really positive benefits by having public likes on the Book of Lore because I think that the faves is actually has more positive feedback loops than negative ones. So for example, if I write something and then I get a fave or a bunch of faves, at the very least I just know that somebody read it and enjoyed it, right? And that's like an inherently like positive effect. And so I think if we start to see that people are spamming it or something, for one, you won't be able to publicly like it unless you are like connected to a wallet that holds a token. And then two, I just don't think that like spam is going to be that big of an issue. I actually think instead it's going to be seen as like a good reinforcement. And then frankly, it's really helpful for us for discovery, right? So you can be able. So one of the things that we really need to do for the Book of Lore is like kind of promote like how to find posts that you're interested in, right? So like or posts that are good, right? It's your very first day at the Book of Lore. I want to start reading the Book of Lore. What am I going to do? Start at Wizard Zero and then just like click through and like we've all done it because that's really the only way to do it now. But then now you have all these stories in the back, like half of the book that like never ever get read, even though they're like just as good. And so, being able to kind of have everybody who reads the Book of Lore fave things really will help us like categorize and promote stuff.
Yeah.
I think another part is like we'll improve the UI, right? Like that the physical. You probably won't use the physical book metaphor as like as hard as we are, where it's like 2 pages on one. We'll probably get rid of the pixel font, make it easier to read. And I think that actually this page like starts off by being almost like the character sheet for your wizard, right? So like so you should also have maybe like the achievements that the wizard has, or like stats, or like this wizard participated in the unlocking of the gate, or things that get written on the Book of Lore should be part of this like wizard's event log. So yeah.
Yeah. I really want the Book of Lore to not just be a compendium of stories and cult content, but I also wanted to sort of feel like maybe a D&D character creation page where other metrics are accrued. Because, you know, a vital component to Forgotten Runes is like building up your character, leveling it up, making it more than what it was when you first got it. That's what really brings them to life. And so I think we can reflect a lot of that in the Book of Lore.
And I think that like so then like let's say the Book of Lore is a character page, right? It's how you build out your character. I think the other thing we really want to do is have like a collector's page. And I think we'll reveal more details as we go, but ultimately like the collector's page is about like the holder, right? And so in that case you'll have like badges if you burned a wizard. You know, even if you like sold your soul but you were a burner, right? You should get some sort of street cred for that. Like if you helped unlock at the gate, all that should be like recorded there. And I think we'll have the obvious stuff like, you know, the collections the tokens that you hold. But we'll also have stuff like, okay, here's the lore that this person written and like some other badges that we're like not quite ready to share yet. So, but I think like having like a collector's page where you can see like, okay, this is about, you know, the Book of Lore page is around like the character token, but then the collector page is about like the wallet, like the holder, and it's kind of their achievements too. So yeah, we're working on that. We've got some drafts of that design, but we'll share more about it soon. Yeah.
Slim is asking a question that's sort of tangential to this in terms of just better website, organizing information better. He's asking, we need a basically an elevator pitch for the project.
Yeah.
I hear you, man. So first of
Yeah.
all, Slim, I'm going to share something that Merlin made recently in the Discord, which is just a really great one pager on the whole project. It's a beginner's guide.
Yeah.
But, you know, perhaps that's not what you mean by, quote, elevator pitch, which is like a sentence or two that sums up the entire project. You know, this is something I've been looking for 2 years. You know, I find myself wanting to use the phrase decentralized world building, but number one, a lot of people don't even know what world building means. And number two, the word decentralized just kind of confuses people. And so, you know, if anyone in the cult has like a good like one sentence log line that describes everything we do, please share it because it's really difficult to do it. I don't even know if it's possible.
Yeah, I think that our homepage right now is like geared. It almost reads like it's towards like executives or something, rather than like people who like you know want to. I don't know. It's almost geared towards like movie executives or something, rather than like towards someone who would join the cult or like want to understand the project immediately. And so, yeah, we like for sure. Yeah.
No, that's also part of the problem. It's like depending on who are you pitching to? Are you pitching to a business executive? That's going to require a different log line than just the rando on the street. So yeah, I mean it's a very tricky thing.
Yeah, we also have we have this deck that I mean to your point, Elf. Like you can when you start a company, you usually make a deck about like who we are, and then you realize every meeting needs a different version of that deck, and then like a year later, you have 20 different versions of that deck. And so right now we have like a presentation that's it feels very corporate, but it also explains a lot, I think, very succinctly. And so I actually think we should share that sooner than later, because it sort of gives this sort of top-down view of who we are, what we're doing, where we're at in the process, and where we're headed.
It's a good idea. Yeah.
And I think we put so much work into it, and I think it's probably time to share it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good stuff we could put on the homepage there too.
Yeah. So Slim, thank you for that. But I know Slim, you're really talking about like a sentence or two. And I actually started like writing one in response to you in Discord, but then I stopped paying attention to Wizard Wednesday. So I'm gonna stop. But like, you know, we do need to work on that. And I do and by the way, I think words like decentralized actually do make sense in the right context. So as long as you surround it, you know, you make it clear that decentralized means that you're, you know, building it alongside the fans of the IP or something, then it kind of hits. But anyway, we should move on. There's some other things that I wanted to sort of talk about in terms of what we want to hit in, you know, 2023.
Yeah. So website and book of lore improvements are coming. Let's hit binary star. That's very exciting.
Yeah. So okay. So the idea behind binary star, and all of this, of course, is like conditioned on getting like a final green light from legal. But the basic idea with binary star is that it provides a way for NFT holders to license an option to their IP. To their IP rights. And so, like, we basically see this as a way that folks who create IP with their characters can easily monetize that IP to like other projects that want to use that. So, I think an obvious example would be like a television show about wizards, right? And then you could license an option to use the lore from your cult content, and then those IP owners, like, you could receive money whether or not that cult content is actually used because you licensed an option to use your IP. And so, I always have to mention when I'm saying this that like what I'm not saying is that we just pay out a blanket royalty to NFT holder like regardless of participation. I'm like specifically saying that IP owners can receive a royalty for like basically engaging these sort of like traditional meat space contracts where you're licensing the IP
Mm-hmm.
that you have to something else that is going to use it. And so binary star is going to make this like very easy is the goal. I've been a bit slow kind of like pulling the trigger on this because frankly there isn't actually any revenue flowing through it this second. But I mean, it's really clear to me that we need to lay the foundation because Forgotten Runes is going to become a global brand, and so like we need to have this structure already in place. So yeah, so getting binary star sort of like out the door or at least like available for signups is something that we are pressing on.
And really, I think this is what the beauty of binary star is, the commercial rights that every person who owns a character token has. Those rights actually allow for for what we think is this seamless relationship, right? Because if we give you commercial rights, that means we can license them back, and it potentially becomes very clean. But
Well,
yeah,
both
yeah,
both us or anyone, right? Like
yeah,
anyone else, any other third party.
right.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, so this idea of like being able to pay effectively a royalty to IP holders in a way that like feels very Web3 is well, no one else has done this in the same way, and it's like very, very exciting. So yeah, we're looking forward to getting that out.
Yeah, and we definitely saw some chat in some discussions in sales chat about like, will people see a royalty from this or from that Magic Machine does? And what we're hoping is that this allows us to have a relationship with token holders that is novel and hasn't been seen before.
And I think it's also whenever we talk about the IP conversation, of course, like a good reminder is that like there are like different classes of things that get created with the Forgotten Runes like IP. So for example, there's like things that Magic Machine creates with the IP. There are things that like the cult creates and like businesses that the cult creates with their IP. And then there's like third party uses of the IP, right? And so one of the things we're trying to do is be like very careful around um, like what does it mean if we like license an option for your character but we don't use it? What if we create IP around a token that someone else owns, right? Or what if we use the IP from like lore that someone else created? That's like the next higher level, right? Like we actually use a character that you created in something that we produce, right? And so we're trying to like think through these kind of scenarios with care and to try to come up with something that's like both fair and like compatible with like traditional IP laws and of course like avoiding any kind of like securities laws traps. So yeah, so that's binary star.
It's very exciting. I want to hit on a question before we move on that Steezy put in the secret tower. He's basically asking, how do we I lost the. Oh wait, hold on. What's the best way to get one of my characters in front of you for consideration to be included in any of the media? So we've been over this before, but it's always good to come back to. And this applies to anyone. How do you get one of your characters to appear in the comic or a show or whatever? There's several different ways. Number one, just make your character just compelling, attention grabbing. Make them let's see, a dominant force on Twitter that you just can't ignore. There's a lot of wizards in the cult that do this. McWazir was one of the first wizards that really just rose to fame because of all the amazing stuff he was making. Um, Tanya Del Rio is doing a really good job with her wizards, like making art, making story, making comics. It's impossible to ignore some of these characters because they're just all over. They're always doing really interesting things. You can also get other people to make interesting things with your character. Like Oz is always doing really good stuff with a lot of different people's characters. There was Milton's Pub made a cameo in one of the issues of the comic because I remember Oz made a really cool piece of artwork of a bunch of wizards hanging out in Milton's Pub. So you can lean on other cult members to make really compelling content for your character.
I think Magus Devon of the Quantum Downs is like such a clear, iconic character in my mind, and like go look at her Book of Lore page and see the same character from 100 different angles, and it's just like, there's like no way not to use that character.
Yeah. HenBoyd's wizard with a sword really always stood out to me because he's like this wizard riding a pony with a sword. It was the first one I had seen doing that. Like, just make something that you can't ignore. Another way to do it is pure luck, and by that I just mean, like, I give our writers, like the comic writer and Derek and whoever else we're working with, I want to give them like a certain amount of freedom and artistic license to just do their own thing. And so one thing they do, like, let's say they're writing a scene about fireworks. Like, Joe, the comic writer, will literally go to the search page in the Book of Lore and type in fireworks and just find any lore that's written about fireworks, and that's what ends up on the page. So, I think Joe also said, like, Book of Lore entries with pictures and art really stand out to him. And so that's a really good way of catching another creative person's eye, is just like augmenting your Book of Lore page with art. So there's several ways to like get your character in front of us and get them featured in one of these media expressions. But yeah, I mean, really, it's just about making really compelling cult content.
Yep.
Can I bring up the next thing that I want to talk about?
Yeah.
And really, it's for Dotta to talk about staking.
Yep.
I want to talk about staking.
I don't know if we actually want to go into that too much today, or do we?
We have an agenda.
No?
Do you have the agenda doc pulled up?
Agendas. I thought you wanted to talk about that.
Not today.
Just
Damn it, Bear.
It's the COVID, I promise.
So yeah, I think like another thing that we want to talk about is the shapeshifter. So like we talk a ton about how like NFTs are digital objects, right? And so they should support like a lot of the same like dynamism that like other software has. But like you at the same time, you want to like keep the same provenance, kind of like keep your initial commitments, right? And so we've done this a few times with like the Great Burning event when you create Forgotten Souls, right? When you burn locks to create like gilded warrior weapons, and then I could think like most obviously the Halloween event where we like composed skulls and blood and goo or whatever onto like a bunch of different tokens. And so I think like one of the really cool things about the shapeshifter infrastructure is that you can use it to get like a hex PFP on Twitter, but that like it still has the same provenance of the Forgotten Runes deployer, right? Like so. I think that like the future of Shapeshifter is that we create like some cosmetic tokens. I think like one of the most obvious ones is that you're able to just like crop to the face of your wizard, right? So if you notice, I'm not using the Dotta account right now, but like even on like the Dotta account, I've got it cropped to my like face. And so well, I just think that's totally something that we want to be able to support, where you can get like a hex PFP of a crop, but with the same provenance of Forgotten Runes deployer, but it's like you're able to like customize it to make it your own, right? You're able to like MySpace the token. And so I think another one that we totally want to do is cosmetic hat change tokens, right? Hat color change. So that wouldn't like necessarily change the rarity of like the main collection, but like maybe you identify with like a different hat color house and you want to present as that, like then you should be able to use that hat change token. And so yeah, so we have tons of ideas here, and I don't want to like spoil them. But you know, they don't always have to be pixel art either, right? Like we'll have the 3D models. We have the Dream Master bot. We have like all kinds of like tricks and ideas up our sleeve. And so I think, you know, the Pixel Wizard is the kernel, and you should be able to present as like lots of other canonical interpretations. So yeah, there's not like a schedule here, but I think like leaning into Shapeshifter is something we definitely want to do.
It's going to be a thing. Let's jump to merch. I'm actually super excited about merch because we've got some fun stuff coming along with that. Bear, do you want to start with that? And by the way, don't spoil anything, Bear.
I'm ready to start. Now I'm ready to like bring up a bunch of stuff that you still want to talk about.
Kick him out. Kick him out.
Okay, first of all, before we talk about merch, did you just look in the company Discord at the screenshot that I shared? Anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about the Aaron. Okay, so merch, yeah. So merch, lots going on. I know like the store is closed right now, and I'm not sure if we talked about this publicly, but essentially we're internalizing all fulfillment. We are using another company that did a great job, but it was more of like a side thing for them. So we reprinted all the stuff that had sold out, and we brought all of the existing existing stuff to the Bear Cave. We'll be shipping from there, so just be patient. The store will be back up to ship that. But I think something that is really exciting when it comes to merchandise is something I leaked without permission. Again, I guess this is something I do. I didn't realize
it's
I
a
did
thing
this.
that you do.
Yeah, I guess it is a thing I do, and
It's
I'm gonna,
okay.
and I'm gonna keep
It's
doing
fine.
it.
Yeah,
No, you're not. You're not going to keep doing it.
I'm gonna keep doing it. No, is
No.
the Chimera pup. So there's this. Plushies are at the top of our mind. We think that everybody loves a good plushie. We think that there's a lot of really great fauna within the Runeverse that really makes compelling plushies and stuffies, along with other things. So we're really going to be focused on how to attack like Web 2 brand strategies. And I think Dotta, you may have said this on a company call the other day. Is like when we first started and we started talking about a television show, we're going to do this video game, we're going to do comic books, and we actually got some resistance about like, oh, you guys are just a Web 2 company. And we got kind of confused when we heard that pushback. But now, of course, a year later, everybody's like, we're going to do Web 2. And so I think we're going to continue into Web 2 in that like when I hear Web 2, I just think like sustainable, more like sustainable,
real business.
forecastable
Yeah.
businesses,
Yeah.
I remember like sitting down with Dotta being like, okay, we need to come up with like monthly revenue. He's like, no. Like, this is how crypto works. You go into the woods, you're starving, you kill something, and then you eat off of it for a year, and then it happens again. And so I think it is important. It's important to build sustainable business. It's important for the cult. It's important for us. And so this idea of plushies and general merchandising strategies, I think, are going to be really important for us. And so we are going to take the path of putting together. Honestly, it's a brand in of itself that fits within Forgotten Runes, of these stuffies, and so we're going to be putting that together now. We already have some samples. We're going to have more samples, but I think we're going to have sort of this elegant packaging presentation that not only will we share with manufacturers and licensors, but also the cult, so you guys can see what's happening. Am I missing anything?
Yeah, no, I think that like I did want to echo what you're saying, which is like I definitely had a gut check moment of like reflection when people were like using Web 2 brand as an insult. And then like now I'm just like, no, I don't care. Yes, fine. We're doing a Web 2 brand. Like we're doing an IP. That's leaning into
we're
like
doing
what
both.
we're doing. We're doing both. Yeah, we are doing both. And so I think, when you look again, I always come back to this. When you look at that like top highest grossing franchises of all time, a massive amount of the revenue comes from merch. And one of the things that I believe, just like, I have like my visions of grandiosity about ourselves, is that like we make magic. And so like when I look, yes, there are like 100 stuffies at Target, but when you look at the Chimera pup, it's special. Like my daughter, for example, is a stuffed animal connoisseur. She has like 100. And when she saw the Chimera pup, she just like melted. The Chimera cub, excuse me. Sorry, I even wrote it wrong in my notes. When she saw the Chimera cub, she just like melted because she's like, "That's amazing. What is that? Like, can I have that?" Like, because like you don't see stuffed animals like that have like 3 heads or whatever. And so, I'll say one thing. I see Guy and a couple pudgy penguins in the audience. Plug your ears for just a second. Like one of the things I noticed with pudgy penguins was I love them. I love the project. It's great. But one of the things I noticed is I saw a lot of people tweeting last week around like penguins that they saw in the store because it's winter and it's Christmas, and they're like, "Look, here's like a penguin plushie. Ah, it looks just like pudgy penguins, our plushies." And what was weird is that like they were right. They were these like generic off the shelf, like find them anywhere penguins plushies that looked exactly like the pudgy penguin plushies. Like you couldn't tell the difference. They were totally undifferentiated. And so like one of the things that I think might be a challenge there is that like if you can't tell the difference between a pudgy penguin and sort of like a stock penguin, then like how do you break out as a brand? And so one of the things that I know that when you look at the Forgotten Runes plushies is like you clearly see it and you're like, what is that? That's brand new. I've never seen that before. And so yeah, so we want to prototype not only the Chimera but the other 7 or 8 beast spawn. We've thrown around the idea of the name Beast Babies, but we'll probably change it. I don't know. But really this idea that I want to do this year is like build out this like very cohesive line of not only plushies but develop a few more of the characters like we've seen with the Sacred Keymaster, and well, really just like present this like brand line.
Yeah, I just want to say that if you saw Bear's Chimera Cub leak, it's not going to look like that. It's actually going to look way cooler than that. That's why I didn't want him to leak it, but he fucking did. Sometimes you can't control a bear. Sometimes
it's still so
cute.
cute.
You can't cage a bear. Can't cage a bear.
Anyway, but yeah, no, but like to Dota's point, like this character is super unique, and we have a lot of other unique characters, and it's not just going to look like your average plushie on the shelf. It's going to jump off the shelf and bite your ass. Like that's what we're trying to build. And so I'm very excited for the plushies. But we also have a lot of new apparel, a lot of new shirt designs that we're working on. Just like apparel is always going to be a thing, and we've got some really exciting developments for that as well.
Am I allowed to leak the shirt that I'm wearing right now that no one's seen, or no?
Absolutely not.
Are you wearing a shirt?
Yep.
Take your shirt off right now.
Go and get him off the cold medicine.
I'm drunk on COVID.
Yeah. So, okay, another thing that we're just like incredibly bullish on is AI. I mean, ChatGPT is incredible. We used it for Gigas Chad. One of the things you noticed with Gigas Chad is that it didn't really know. He didn't know enough about the Runiverse. There are ways that you can kind of train and teach ChatGPT about your world, and so we're doing that. We'll be drawing on both Wikipedia and the Book of Lore, and doing a lot of experiments there. If you're like a programmer and you've used Copilot, or if you've used like ChatGPT, you know that it can like help you write essays or papers or code. And really, like one of the things that we would love to have is sort of two things. One, AI assisted search. To help you like explore and understand the Runiverse, right? You're sitting down and you're trying to write some lore about like the Thorn, and you want to have continuity, right? You're like trying to operate within the world. You can basically ask it and say, ask the Oracle and say, hey, what has been written about the Thorn? Like, what does it feel like? What do the plants look like, right? You can kind of drill down in the AI instead of rather than like searching and reading all these Wikipedia articles. You'll be able to actually ask the AI, and it should, in theory, know about what's been written about the Thorn. And at the same time, it can also give you prompts and even help you write some of the lore of your character. I am not sort of against AI assisted kind of lore, because I think that really like you still want to have a human as part of the process who's kind of like guiding, shaping, editing, carving, deciding what's good. And if you can use sort of an AI that understands the Runiverse to help unblock you and to help take a blank page to a page that has some details on it, like I'm all for it. I think like, as a community, we'll have to kind of we'll self-correct to make sure that it's not getting filled with a bunch of AI generated spam. Nobody wants that. But for it to help genuine creation, I think is a great idea. So yeah, we'll be working on that. Of course, working on AI visually because we have like the Dream Master bot. But I think AI is going to be an enormous thing for our community this year.
Yeah, I just want to chime in. This is one of the things I'm actually most excited for as well. I don't know how many times I've said that this today, but yeah, I mean, just to reiterate, like to me, this like gives a whole new incentive for writing lore, to know that your content is going to be training this AI. I don't know how many other places people have an avenue for something like that, but here's one place. You will be literally training this machine consciousness in the lore of our world. This is another way to build the world together. And as Dotta said, this will also serve as sort of a continuity tool. This is a thing we get asked a lot, which is how do you ensure continuity in your world when you've got thousands of people creating for it? Well, this is perhaps one way. If you want to write about the thorn or whatever, you can ask it, okay, tell me about the thorn, and then you can choose to continue with that lore continuity or not. But at least the tool is there. And I can imagine we're going to dress it up with like a fun character, sort of in the way that we did with Gigas Chat over Wismus. And I can imagine this maybe sitting at like near the front of the book of lore. So yeah, I'm just so excited about this.
Yeah. We talked about the comic book. I think like one last thing that, yeah, happy to kind of like talk through or even tease is I've been thinking just quite a lot about the NFT marketplace in general, right? As much as we can kind of talk about these long-term plans around, the next Lord of the Rings and these long-term sort of projects, ultimately the show is still like a bit far out before anyone actually gets to watch it. And so we still need to kind of play the NFT game between here and there. And, I think a lot about the liquidity tools like NFTX and Pseudo, topics like marketplace royalties and, having token supplies, or how you think about like the supply of like wizards plus warriors and like the differentiation between wizards and warriors. Like these are all things that I spend a lot of time thinking about, and we of course want to make these metrics like more favorable. I'm not ready to like talk about too many details, but like one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is like NFTX, right? So like NFTX like dampens volatility. I talk about this all the time in the sales chat. We don't have enough time to really dig into NFTX, but basically what NFTX is, you're able to deposit your wizards and then people can kind of trade in and out of the floor like very easily. It's fine for people who want to sell, right? Like that's actually the best benefit for NFTX is the people who want to sell, because like you can sell right away and get money out. But it's like not great actually for an NFT project that's like trying to generate hype, because it actually like dampens on the way up, right? It's this like massive like buy wall for kind of like the floor pricing. And so the question is like, well, why do people even like use NFTX? Like, why is there so much liquidity in there? And it's because it's like the only way really to get passive yield on your NFTs. It's like the easiest way to get passive yield on your wizards. And so, I think that like really the best way to combat that is to offer an alternative and something that's like really like interesting and fun and plays with like the lore. Yeah. So that's one of the main things we're talking about. Like implementing. We'll have like a lot to share there after we ship Goblin Town, maybe even a little bit before. So, but yeah. So, well, you can be on the lookout for that for this year. Something we're working on.
And I've actually really enjoyed. I'm not going to go over it again, but I've really enjoyed the ideas that we've been throwing around in that zone. I think we can approach it in a pretty novel way. So yeah,
Yep.
I'm excited.
Super exciting things. This was a really long show today. I don't want to end just quite yet. Although I do think I'm going to push the Hugh Hat lore to next show.
I thought Emma was going to read lore, but I don't know if she's still here.
So, okay. So, Cosmic Birds has actually volunteered to read Emma's lore for her.
Okay, great.
So Cosmic Birds, I think this is the first time you've been up on Wizard Wednesday. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Everybody. Yeah, this was unexpected.
Welcome.
So Emma had to run off to work, and so she asked me to read her best friend squad lore for her.
Okay. Let's whenever you're ready.
All right. Best friend squad. Today would start like any other day for Enigma, waking up with a smile in her tiny but tidy hut somewhere in the woods of the Fae. Good morning, lovely Fred. Did you sleep well? The lovely Swamp Witch asked, sitting up and stretching in her little bed. Though he couldn't speak, Fred managed to eke a squeak of joy as he mimicked Enigma's morning stretch routine. Oh, good. You'll need your energy. Do you know what today is? Enigma asked, her eyes sparkling with pure joy. Squeak! Squeak! Fred started hopping with more intensity as he did realize indeed what day it was. That's right, letter day! Yay! Enigma scooped up Fred and started dancing around the house, using magic to clean up what little mess may have survived through the night. Now letter day was the day for Enigma. The entire year had been spent preparing for this day, making sure she had enough kobold snacks, they were not fond of mushrooms, that she had filtered enough drinking water, and most importantly, parchment and ink. Two of her best friends, the strongest ghost eaters in the Runiverse, Trollin and Kobold, would be stopping by for snacks and to write letters of encouragement to their friends across the Runiverse. When the three of them got together, they were literally a nonstop force of love, acceptance, and hugs. The world literally became a kinder place in their presence. Also, it didn't hurt that they had the squishiest, most huggable faces in the entire world. Enigma and Fred spent the morning ignoring their usual routine, decorating the hut, and getting ready for company. Prepping snacks for wizard and familiar alike, making sure there was plenty of comfy sit-down space and the like. Eventually, the time came that they'd been waiting for with great anticipation had finally arrived. Knock, 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 knock. A loud rhythmic banging came from the door, quickly followed by a muffled bonk. Trollin, you only have to knock once, a voice said from outside, causing Enigma to burst into giggles. Yeah, no, come on. Why do I even knock? Not even being able to handle being away from her besties any longer, Enigma threw open the door and scooped both kobolds up in a huge hug. Yay! Best friend time! The three sang out in unison amidst their Bearsnake hug. Oh my God, Enigma, we were so excited to see you. We brought presents, and I brought scamps, and Kobold, who was both a kobold in name and race, rambled on as Trollin rolled his eyes and stepped inside. So this year, I have a whole list of folks who have never received Enigma affirmations, and I think it's high time we change some lives, Trollin said, whipping out a very long scroll filled to the brim with random names. Trollin and Kobold quickly made themselves at home, releasing their familiars to do their own thing, as well as munching snacks and just overall catching up. These three could talk about nothing and everything for days if fate would allow them. Thankfully, Enigma was fabulous at keeping the crew on track, and it wouldn't be long before the trio was fiercely scribbling away at letters of encouragement. The messages varied in detail but remained the same. They were amazing for making it this far, and had such an impact on those around them, and they were seen, heard, and loved. Enigma was famous for enchanting her letters to grant small wishes such as specific snacks, a glass of cold water, etc., while Kobold and Trollin were, well, infamous for their enchantments. Random things like sticks, rocks, scraps of cloth would be summoned when you open a letter from one of those two. Funnily enough, these three would bring about the concept of trick or treat to the Runiverse in the coming years. The one thing you need to know about kobolds is that while they may be a bit bumbly, they are loyal, fiercely devoted, and seriously good friends. So even though they may have missed the mark with execution from time to time, heck, so did Enigma, if not even more often, they were quite lovable and the best family a Swamp Witch could ask for. The entire day went by so fast, much to the trio's chagrin. But for that day, the Fae was filled with love, kindness, and support on a level that was only felt on this day each year. Before they knew it, the sun had set and all the letters had finally been written. Whew, I think this might be our most successful year yet, Enig. I wrote over 100 letters today, Kobold said, standing from the table, admiring his pile of letters. Agreed, this was the first year that any of our letters were addressed to the penguins up north. I hope they like them. I've been wanting to go on a visit for so long now, Enigma said, stacking the letters in a small basket by the front door. Well, we must be on our way. We had so much fun, Trollin exclaimed, hugging the swamp witch tight and gathering his things. Now you have to come to us for winter celebrations. I won't take no for an answer. The entire family is waiting to meet you. Enigma hugged, squeezed, and loved her friends, helping them to gather things and escorting them to her front porch. Fred and I should have these in the post by the end of the day tomorrow, and you know we'll be there for the holidays, Enigma said, opening the door and letting her guests out. Take care and see you in a few months. Enigma waved as her besties wandered down the little path, taking them away from her tiny but tidy hut in the middle of the Fae. The end.
Freaking adorable.
Woo!
I've got lots of comments on this. Number one, did she choose you because you could squeak so well?
That was probably unexpected.
No, well done on the squeak. Well done on the door knocks. I always love when sound effects are incorporated. This was a very Emma story. I could hear Emma throughout all of it. It was very much her language. Talking about squishy faces and Bearsnake hugs. Another thing I realized is I freaking love that some of the kobolds are just named Kobold. It's like such a kobold thing to do, to just name your kid Kobold. It's just like, I can't think of anything, just call him Kobold. But yeah, I mean, that was really well done. Thank you, Cosmic.
Thank you, guys. I'm honored that Emma asked me to read, so thanks for letting me up.
Anytime. And you know what? Speaking of kobolds, Jitcy, you've been up here the whole time, and there was a question directed at you earlier. Let's maybe end with this. Jitcy, you maybe more than anyone. There's a few others, but like you've done a lot to like really develop the kobold lore. And so Bridge was asking, do you plan to capture that kobold energy in a bottle this year?
Yeah, and the key to it is just keep on staying stupid, right? So
I guess not.
Well, one of the funniest things is like Jitcy always like puts on this kobold persona, but he's actually one of the smartest people on our team.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm being kobold today a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that, but I think that's the beauty about kobolds is that as long as you can smile and have a good time, you're welcome. So
yeah,
love it.
I guess. Oh, yeah, he's trying to speak, but it's not coming through.
Okay, go back to bed.
Okay, we are way over time. Is there anything else?
Nope.
Dotta, what is that music that you're playing for us today?
It's Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. The song is Spanish Flea.
It's such a good
classic
song.
So good. Okay, well, this has been Hermetic Hump Day, Magical Midweek, Wednesday Adams, aka Wizard Wednesday. Channeling out from the Quantum Downs, this has been Elf, Dotta, Bearsnake, Jitcy, Cosmic Birds, and the entire Forgotten Runes Wizards cult. GN, everybody.
GN.